first webinar organized by Paper True. And we have two speakers with us today. First is Kavita Karni and Pranita Chetri, both published authors. So Meghna, our COO, was supposed to host this session, but unfortunately she's unwell. So I will be filling in for her. The topic of today's webinar is what are Indian publishers looking for? So I think everyone who is fond of reading and fond of books has that dream of sometime at some point in their life seeing their name on the cover of a book, of a published book, to hold that book that they have written in their hands. But this most of the time, unfortunately, it remains a dream, I think, because uh, there's the entire process that you have to go through. First, the book has to be written. Then there's the process of revision, and then you submit the manuscript to a publishing house, and then maybe you get accepted, maybe not. And then once it gets accepted, there's the entire editorial process and the publishing process that needs to take place. So it most of the time does not happen. And if we look at the current publishing scene in India, you see that there are some books that shoot to the top of bestseller lists and win awards, Indian and international awards. And there are some other books which maybe don't, manuscripts that don't get read at all. While on the other hand, we have this exciting world of possibility, this entire realm of self-publishing and independent publishing and online publishing of all kinds. So this has gotten a boom since I think the COVID pandemic, and uh, since we have moved so far online, and that is also a real possibility right now. So for a novice writer, what are our options? How do we deal with this entire publishing scene? Do we go with traditional publishing? How do these alternate forms of publishing coexist with traditional publishing? What is the best course of action for a new writer? So to help us answer all of these questions and ultimately to give us a sense of what really Indian publishers are looking for, we have our two speakers who are both published authors, but whose publishing journeys have been quite different. So first we have Pranita Chetri, who has written three children's books, Pavankali, Kopila, and Maya, published by Educational Publishing House. She writes in English, and her children's books have been translated into four languages: Nepali, Japanese, French, and German. She's also the co-founder of Books for Change, a nonprofit based in Switzerland. She manages the education programs of the organization in Nepal and India. Our second speaker is Kavita Karni. She is best known for writing mythological fiction, and in retelling these beloved stories from our epics, she explores their relevance in contemporary life. Her bibliography includes best-selling books such as Karna's Wife and Lanka's Princess, both of which have been published by Rupa, and The Fisher Queen's Dynasty, published by Westland. So after each of the panelists give us their initial insights and share their insights and experiences with publishing their books, we will move on to a short discussion that I will be hosting, followed by a Q&A. So for the Q&A, please drop all your questions into the chat box and our team will collect them so that I can take them to our speakers. And just a reminder to everyone, please keep your audio muted so that we don't face any disturbances during the talks by our speakers, but you're free to keep your video on. Okay, so Pranita, please, we'd love to hear your insights about this topic.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. I will be sharing my screen first, and then we're going to go ahead. It's working. So I'm going to start by first introducing independent press. I think it's important. Most of you all who's joining in, I'm sure you guys know a lot about the different independent press, but I'm just going to briefly introduce it. I'm going to come back. Why is it important to know about this different independent press? So we have Pratham Books. So it's a non-profit publishing house, and they publish books, but it's all online. They've published more than 3,000 books, books in more than 29 Indian languages. Second publishing house, I'm going to talk about Zuban. They also have a publishing Young Zuban for children's book. Just to make it clear that today, for my session at least, I'm going to talk about children's book publishing scene. And I'm sure some of you must be interested in this sector as well. So coming back to Zuban, Young Zuban is giving a space for writers who are interested in writing with the voice of like feminism, and so they sort of give that platform to the aspiring writers. Third, the section is called Larger Indie Press. So this is an Enchanted Lions publishing based in Brooklyn. So their work is very special. I'm sure, like, please check out their website and check out their books once if you get time later. So what they do is they translate several great works of children's literature into English and make it available for public. So last I'm going to talk about indie micropresses. So Tara Publishing is one such a publishing house which is creating great visual children's book content for the audience. And it's also like Tara Books is, although they create picture books, but it's not just for children, but it's also for adult. And the number of books, I think I'm exactly not sure the number of books, but what they do is it's really handmade books, focusing on tribal and folk art, that they make it available for public. I'm just going to read about the vision of Enchanted Lion Publishing. We seek out books that spark curiosity, wonder, and astonishment. Books that ask and explore, to open up the idea for children that we each have the agency and ability to recreate the world in which we live, is to give them an infinite sense of hope and possibility. It is to nourish their capacity and dream. So as you can see from two different vision with Enchanted Lions and Tara. So I'm quickly going to also read about Tara. The combination of aesthetics and politics has been crucial to our work. Politics in the sense of power relation of anything we deal with, who's telling the story, their background, and their names. So you can see that how these different independent press have a different style, and also the platform they are giving. So I think as aspiring writers, it is very important for us to know in which category do we belong. Do we belong to the category of Tara Books or Zuban or Enchanted Lions? I think with that, it saves us a lot of time when we start approaching publishing house, when we know that, okay, my book that I will have the chance to be published if I put it forward to Tara, because it has this tribal, this folk art form, and it's more artistic. So I think it's important for aspiring writers to think about that. So now I'm going to talk about my experience, and I'm going to talk about Maya, my book Maya. So all of my 3 books are published by Education Publishing House. It's a small independent publishing house based in Kathmandu, Nepal. So it was in back then I used to live in Kathmandu, and yeah, I'm going to more talk about it. So the process of publishing my children's book, usually the first step is sending a proposal, and the difficulties and the challenges that I faced was when I started sending out proposal to different publishing house, both in Nepal as well as in India. I did not hear any replies back, and I realized that, okay, I'm dealing with children's book, and visual is a part of that is it's a major part of my book. So I thought, okay, why don't I collaborate with an artist, and we create the book together, and we submit the first draft of that book, because it made more sense, and I think it was more smarter to go with that journey. So for me, the first step, it started with submitting the first draft of the children's book, and the storyboard to the publishing house. And Education Publishing House in Kathmandu, they wrote back, and they thought they are interested, to have an interview with me. And I visited them, and this was the process that we followed when we developed our final script. So the second step was revisiting the storyboard and text with the editors, editing and proofreading, working closely with the translators, contract, book design and technical editing, promotion and advertisement, print and delivery. So these are the steps that we followed. So I'm going to talk about contract. I think this is very important for young writers to get a view about this. So in this contract, what I realized was, I, as a writer, I had to sign two contracts. First is a contract that I signed with the. I think it is so important to also know the fact that when you are working on a children's book, you are the writer and you have the artist. So there's like two people coming together and creating this book. So how I proceeded was like, I provided the payment for the artist, and then I said, it was a big gamble, definitely, but it was like, we the royalty later on would be charged, like I will get the royalty and not the artist, because the artist is already paid. So this was important for me to make it clarify, like who's getting what. I think this is very, very important part of this. And book design and technical editing. And I think the second part of the contract is obviously you sign with the publication house. And what I realized was, in this process, I mean, I was dealing with a very small independent publishing house, and it was a very collaborative process. It was not that I was pushed in the darkness and I did not know what was happening. I got the possibility of also seeing the book come alive, and this was very, very interesting for me. And also, like, working very closely with the translators. My mother language is Nepali, and I worked very closely with the translator when we were translating my book into Nepali. So this was provided. I mean, this was possible because it gave me this freedom to be able to also work closely with the translators. So promotion and advertisement, I think this was something that we planned. We have like two stages, either to go ahead with promotion and advertisement before the publishing and as well as after. So we also did this. It was not so grand, but it was small, and it was a good push for us to sell the books in the market. And then after that, we went into the print and delivery phase. So I think one advice to the listeners, to the aspiring writers, would be finding the right publishing house takes time. Don't give up, but it takes time, and it is possible to figure out and to be successful in finding your publishing house that where both of you, like, where the value resonates with each other, where you guys are both on the same page. I think it is important to find that publishing house, and it takes time, and it is possible. So the other thing that I'm going to talk about is challenges and advantages of working with indie press. So at the beginning is they provide, for me, it was like I was given a lot of freedom with creative expression that I was able to control. And as well as we did change few things, I would say, in the text, but it was with my knowledge, and it was not something that was like I had to forcefully say yes. I think it was something that I thought, okay, that adds value to the book, and that was given to me. And the communication was very efficient with the indie publishing, and in fact they took care to the attention, like also like what is the author thinking about the changes, or even the illustrator. So this was also taken into account, that we worked in a very collaborative process. So the other thing, I think one of the challenges with the indie publishing is definitely the distribution. It's limited. It's not across major cities in India. I think it's not the case. So this is definitely one of the challenge that I faced, and it sort of creates a niche market. I mean, talking about the niche market, you have both advantage as well as disadvantage. I mean, advantage is definitely like you have this following of people who of readers who are constantly like writing to you, and this loyal readers. I think they sort of like, for me, after my books were published, the readers, especially both the young as well as the adult, they get back to me even now and write these messages, and it has sort of created this niche market. I mean, the disadvantage is definitely the finance. I mean, you cannot survive yourself. It takes time to survive yourself just by writing, I would say, unless and until you are published by a major publishing house. But I think having this niche market itself is, I think, very valuable for me when I think about it. It's not just about the finance. Definitely, it plays a big part, but I think having this valuable community who writes back to you and who appreciates your work, I think this has been able to that this was achieved by this independent publishing house, I would say. And experimentation in design, content, and production. So I think the independent publishing house, they're also like pushing boundaries with the design of the books. And especially, I think I'm a big fan of Tara Publishing, especially how they do how they work with like handmade books, and it's very special with art. And also when you hold that book, it's not like holding a Kindle in your hand. It's this work of art that you hold it in your hand, and I think it has been created by indigenous like artists, and that sort of value. I think they sort of try to create and push boundaries with the production and the design of the books. So like I said before, the indie press and also the publication that I worked with, we worked together, we worked in collaboration, and it was, I think, a very healthy environment to come together and work. It was, I think this was important. This was important for me, and yes, I think it was also like, and I'm glad that we had this sort of this sort of communication to be able to come up with the book. Talking about the duration, I think it's also important to mention the duration of the book. So when I write, and also when the illustrator is working with me, so together, when we take usually one year to 1.5 years to complete a book, and when we submit it to the publication, it usually takes 3 to 4 months until the book is ready. So it takes time, and I think one aspect that I would like to suggest to the listeners is, when I started sending out my application, my draft to different publishing, I think in the website, it was also confidential that when you apply to one publishing, you're not allowed to apply to other publishing house. So and it takes time. Like usually the traditional, the big publishing house, they say 6 months, and it's a long time to wait. for 6 months. So that is why it's important to keep in mind that you select the publishing house where your objective of your writing, where your voice of the writer, it matches with the objectives of the publishing house, so that you don't waste your time waiting for 6 months, and when nothing is happening, it's dramatic. So I think it would be good for you all to choose the right publishing, and keep pushing yourself and keep trying, and I'm sure the doors will open. So with this, I would like to end my talk, and I will be answering your questions soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pranita, for that extremely insightful discussion on indie publishing and what are the advantages and disadvantages, and also for giving us this insight into what novice writers like us should look out for and what we should do really to, to that will help us get published. So, moving on from this, we will let's have Kavita ma'am talk to us about her experience with larger publishing houses. Over to you. And I think your audio is muted still, so
Okay.
we can't hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think Pranita has already told us what the current situation is. And in fact, I got enlightened a bit, because I think when I started writing a book, it was almost 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And that's a huge time gap, especially because I think things have drastically changed in, vis-a-vis publishing and authors as such. So I think I will answer this time, whatever 15 minutes I have got, 15, 20 minutes. What I'd like to say is the question which is always asked, how did I publish my book? What were the pros, cons? How did I go about it? And when I sort of recollected, I realized there was nothing planned. I think I just I was a journalist. I was working, and one fine day I decide, okay, I want to write a book. And that's the time I actually gave up my job, and I said, okay, let me write this book, because I did not want any distraction. So I was working for DNA that time, and I quit my job. And I remember the date I started writing the book. It was 14th Feb. It was a fabulous Valentine's for me. And yes, I started writing the book, and it took about let's say almost a year, uh, about I should say roughly 9 to 10 months. And I remember uh, during those 9 10 I was fully into the book, and I was writing the last chapter, and I said, okay, now I'm finishing the chapter. Now what do I do? Now what am I going to do? So that was the time, because I had decided, let me concentrate fully on the book, and then I will go into seeing the publishing side of it. So it was more, because I think that is what exactly what happens with a book. When you're writing a book, it is a creative process. Once the book is done, it becomes a product. So I think I just wanted to concentrate completely on part A of writing a book. And I said, okay, let me finish the book. And the book got over 8 9 months. And I remember saying, okay, now is the time I should really start checking out the publishing houses. And I think people sort of assumed like I would have it easy, because I was in the media that time. But I was in a very local media. I was based in Pune. So really, most of these publishing houses, of course, are in Delhi. Most of them are Delhi based. And I said, okay, fine. I just checked up with other authors I knew, other journalists turned authors, and they said no, the most of them, and I just write to them. So I said, okay, let me just follow what they said. And I said, okay. And I remember the book was done, and I had the first 3 chapters, and I sent the first 3 chapters, the sample of the first 3 chapters, to all the publishing houses, all the big publishing houses, everyone, whichever randomly I heard anyone talking about it. Since I was clueless, it was like stumbling in the dark. I didn't have anyone to guide me. It's very ironical. Being in the media, I didn't know anything. And except then I decided to do publishing as an assignment. I said, let me go, let me check out all which are the publishing houses, major publishing houses in the country. And I think I sort of singled out about 10 to 12 of them, and I sent it to all of them. There were rejection. The best thing, I think most authors complain now that they do not reply. I think I got a reply, whether it's positive or negative. I did get a reply. I think that was the best part of it. At least you know where you stand. So yes, there were rejections, and they were very polite rejections. I remember one of the rejections which really was, we do not take mythology. Mythology is not part of a genre. We don't accept mythology. And this is very ironical now when I talk, because now it's supposed to be the most popular genre in the market. So it's that's what I was trying to say. Publishing, how everything changes so drastically. There was a time where I think this was, I think, in 2012, 13 sometime. I'm not too sure about the year, but this is the rejection I had got from a very big publishing house. He said, no, we do not accept. I'm very sorry. Uh, then there was one which we got from another publishing house was. There's a very big author. He's writing something similar to yours. So are you ready to wait for a year? Yeah, so these were the explained replies I used to get. It's not question of not getting a reply. I got a very detailed reply. So I said, okay. And then there was one who said, okay, you pay us something, pay us an amount, and then we'll publish your work. And I said, definitely. It was sort of a very indignant no. I didn't say that, but I said, okay, no, thank you very much. And I said, oh, let me just sit and wait. And but the replies, it was not as she said, as delayed as 6 months. They came pretty promptly within, I think, one and a half months. So the whole thing. Then I think by the time out of 10, I got 5. I think 4. 4 were yes, 6 were rejection. So 4 were yes, and out of the 4, I had to choose. So one was I was working. By that time, I remember I had already taken up a new job. Um, that was, in fact, one of my sort of the doubts which had assailed me was when I was doing the last chapter. Oh, I finished this chapter now. I was unemployed that time. I said, will I get work? I mean, all this 1 year I was writing a book, so I was happy. So what do I do after that? And I remember it was just call it coincidence, accident, or irony. I got a job within the end of the week. I got a interview call and I joined. I got the job, and so the entire transaction or what liaison I did with the publishing house, I did while I was working with the during my new job. And I remember one of the publishing houses said, "Oh, since you are working with us, we are not going to pay you." It's like, so I said, "No, I had written the book when I was not your employee, so there is no question of." So there were different reasons why I said no, and there were different reasons why they said no. So eventually, I think it was Rupa who I sort of singled out, and out of the 4, there were different reasons, so I said no to them. And okay, Rupa was the one I selected. And that's the time I realized, as a debut author, really you don't have any say. Really, you have no say. You go with the tide. Whatever they say, it's either ha ya na. It's either take it or leave it. So you go. I said okay. I gave the book, and they were pretty prompt in serving, and I remember the advance. I remember the fantastic advance I got. So that was supposed to be a little sarcastic, but yes, and I went ahead, and I think they took some time to bringing the book out. In fact, it was not just a year; more than a year they took, and it was like I was busy with my work, and I was sort of liaising with them with the editing. It was sort of a ongoing process. And I remember one of the first things which they said was, "Oh, the book is 1.5 lakh words. So you have to bring it down to a lakh word." So they gave me, "How fast can you do?" I said, "Okay, today is a Monday. I'll give it to you by next Monday." So they were very shocked. So I said, "No, I'm a journalist. We know how to, drastically cut down our own work." So I think that being a journalist really helped that time, where as a technical, as technical art, writing as a technical art, where you are not emotionally attached to each word. It's like literally from 1.5 lakh coming down to, as like cutting 50,000 words. So in the end, I was actually removing chapters. So when I see the first book, I realized it must have been again a very rough work on my part, because it was the first time I had done creative writing. I had never done creative writing at all. So whatever writing I knew was journalistic writing and the essays which I had done at school. So it was a complete raw, what do you say, but a work right from the guts, right from the heart. And I think that was her. And I think very, very dispassionately and very emotionlessly, I cut down from 1.5 to, came down to 1 lakh words, and I gave it to them. And we were there. Meanwhile, there were change of editors there also. And okay, I just as I said, the debut author really doesn't have, but fortunately they did not really mangle the copy or something. I was very happy with the whole process as such, the whole 1 year process which they had taken. And eventually it came, the book was done. I think it came to the title. And it's very usually that's a very bad habit of mine. I write a book and I never think about the title. The title is always the last thing which comes. So um, I said, this is the title. The title is also a very funny story. I remember one author, because in the media I knew several authors. So I was telling them I'm writing this book about, Karna's wife. The entire reaction used to be, oh, you're writing about Karna's wife? I didn't know Karna had a wife. So I think I said, so one author, he told me, why don't you just keep that as the name? That itself is, because it does grab your attention immediately. That Karna didn't have a wife. People assumed he didn't have a wife. And so, okay, we are talking about Karna's wife. So I decided on Karna's wife. Now, they thought Karna's wife was a very boring title. So I said, I don't care if it's boring. It's a very it's a very gut level title I came, and I've asked other authors, and they said it's. So anyway, sort of a compromise was formed, and then they added, what was that, Outcast Queen or something. So the editor added her bit, and eventually the title became Karna's wife. So this is where we are talking about the intuition. That was the only time actually they intruded, where there was a little, let's say, a little argument over it, where I insisted on my half and they insisted on theirs, and then we formed a double title. It sounded like a Hindi movie. Usually Hindi movies have that little add-ons. So that's how I was the. So then the book cover. So I think they had already decided that was how they go about it. So they had a book cover. I said, fine, it works out fine. I love the color. I love orange and yellow are my favorite colors. So I said, wonderful. So I was very happy with the color also, the whole entire color scheme and all. So the book came out sometime, I remember, in July. Yeah, it came out in July. And I remember how the book came out. It was so ironical. Again, I got a letter. The first person, it was not the editors who told me that I got the book was out. It was one reader who told me the book was out. And I think that time there were a lot of these online. There was Flipkart. There were a lot of the Snapdeal. There were a lot of them that time. So one of the readers through this online shopping told me your book is out, and it's very good. There was a positive response, and I said, oh god damn it, the book is already. Of course, I had received the advance copy, but I did not know when the book was actually the date as such was out. And then I think after that, the book fortunately it did very well. It was sort of a sleeper hit, and I think it came at the right time, because by that time I think it did very well. And I think that because the book did very well, I could negotiate better with the second book. That's what happened, because honestly I had decided I'll just write one book and go back to my job. I had not planned to write. I've written 6 books till now. 4 of them are with Rupa and 2 with Wesley. So the thing was, I thought I would be a one book author. I was completely playing it safe and completely on the defensive. And the book was a hit. And they came up, they said, oh, would you want to write another book? Yes, I said, of course, because ironically, the second book which I wrote, Sita's Sister, was the original story idea I had thought of, actually, but I had not written it for whatever reason. And I had eventually started on Karna's wife. I said, of course I have, because the story idea was already in my mind. And I think here I think I would really like to emphasize, I think the success of a book is very important for the author, essentially because I think not only does it strengthen your negotiating power, I think it gives you the confidence even as a writer. because the topic, this story, Sita's sister, which I was planning to write initially, I think I got the courage to write the second book because of the success of the first book. Because Sita, I don't know how many of you really know about this, but Urmila, there's nothing about Urmila. If you do your research and check out the text, there's absolutely nothing besides the four-line mention. And whatever literature has been done on, especially in regional literature, whatever has been done on Urmila, it's where Valmiki's Urmila sleeps for 14 years. So writing about Urmila was sort of a challenge to me. It was the biggest challenge I had. It was in fact more difficult writing it's always more difficult writing a second book than the first book, because first book you really have no expectation. It is like, okay, you give it, you have no say, you just give the book and it's there. The second book, you have to, there are expectations not only from other people, they are your own expectations. So I always think the second book is more difficult to write, easier to publish of course, but difficult to write because you become your own worst critic. So I think then the journey started. There were 4 books at a time. Then I wrote Main Curse Choice, and then there was Lanka's Pencil, and then I went to Westland and I wrote Fisherman's Dynasty and Ahilya's Awakening, the latest one. And when you're talking about here, when I'm talking about the publishing, I realize that people keep asking me, aspiring authors, writers, that how do you publish? I realize really cannot answer the question because things keep on changing. Because there was a time when publishers used to chase authors, and now it's obviously authors chasing publishers. And there's now a time where there are so many authors and so many publishers, so it is like it gets more and more difficult and more intricate, and with COVID I think things have become completely again changed, where you never ever thought that online publishing would become so powerful, or even the fact that the whole concept of browsing in bookshops would completely go, because whatever said and done, Indian readers still they like the hard copy, this whole concept of browsing a book. And there is a certain traditional thought or the certain old world charm about it, about having a hard copy and buying those books. And then COVID completely stopped that. This whole pandemic stopped the whole, and it was online booking and ebooks. What actually, I think it gave a great fillip to ebooks as such. So, if with things changing so often and so drastically, so my only advice is, as I think Pranita said, is that you have to do. Don't be like me. I was totally clueless. Do your homework completely. In the sense, they are different publishing houses. Each one has a profile. Each one has a very strong profile. Like I was stupid enough to give my manuscript to a publishing house which did not consider mythology as a genre at all. I mean, I was rejected on those grounds. So it was stupid. I just waited for them, and so what I mean to say is that if I had done my homework, I would not have given it to them in the first place. So it's completely my fault. So here I'm trying to say, I think it is extremely very important that you have to know the profile of the publishing house. I'm talking about traditional ones. I really don't know anything about self-publishing here at all, because I think I didn't even think about it. I think I was just playing it safe and clueless. So going by that, I think uh, uh, 8 years down and 6 books down, I think definitely wiser. And what I would say is that yes, uh, there will be rejections, but I think rejections, please do not consider rejection as a failure as a writer. It's absolutely absurd, because uh, each publisher, I think the amount of work sort of work is submitted to them. I think they cannot keep up with the submission coming to them, and I mean, I've heard that they do not reply, and there are some horror stories about it. But what I'm trying to say is that please do not give up. It's like, because when you give up, it is like you're not only giving up on that book, you're giving up on your entire profession of writing, your entire passion of writing. It is an art, it is a gift you have been given, it's a craft which you are skillful of. And I think don't underestimate yourself by one rejection. I mean, there are a lot of, I think rejection actually should strengthen your resolve that no, if not this, that. So I think, in fact, there is definitely more choice than what was there 9 years ago. So I think that is a better, definitely a better, because you are sure that your book is going to get published somehow or the other. I think that time, I think the stranglehold of the traditional industry was definitely more. Yours, because of I think Amazon publishing and self-publishing and all, it's really very popular. So I think where publishing is concerned, don't get, because you have waste. It should not, you should not consider it's a waste of time, because you have sort of given you have devoted so much of your time and effort and talent in writing a book. Why would you get disheartened by one rejection, by two rejection, by 10 rejection, by 15 rejection? No, because I think that is where the actual test of your own strength is. And I think do not get bowed down. Okay, as a debut author, you do not have much say, but then at least you should know where you stand, even when you are signing a contract. uh, be careful, read each and every line, just check out, especially when you're, it's just not about royalties and the advance, you're talking about copyright, and you have to, so please read the contract properly. See, if you want, be realistic. And I think here the discussion has to be very open. Don't go according, because everyone has a standard format, all publishing houses have a standard. Don't go there, don't skim through it, just go through it carefully. There are certain loopholes which you might realize later. And then and when you're signing, take your time, please don't be in a hurry to sign it, because check up with other, check out different, if you know any authors, check up their contracts. And people are quite willing to show their contracts, so just check out where you can improve on. It's not just, as I said, it's just not royalty and advances. So here I think self-publishing really helps, because the royalty, there is no question, because the percentage is definitely more. So these small nuances, because then afterwards, once the contract is done, then you cannot, you difficult getting out of it. You will hate to feel trapped within that. So I think it's best, when you're signing the contract, be very, very careful. And then of course, then the whole editing process, which again I think is very, very, it has to be a symbiotic relationship. The editor, the writer and the editor, it has to be a very strong, close relationship where one understands the other. Because fights and fiction really don't help. And I think I was very fortunate that way. Through all my 6 books, I think I had fabulous editors. So they're not the same, but yes, last 2 books it was the same. But I think for Westland, I had the same editor. But I think it's very, very important you have a good relationship with the editor, because she is the one who's going to sort of she or he is going to the one who's going to actually um, what to say, not only shepherd your book. It is the whole, the nuances, the moods, everything about the author. I think the editor has to, it's a very complicated, very complex, but a very close relationship with the editor. And I think uh, it is very important, because I think that it's very extremely responsible for who the editor is. I think it shows eventually. And then of course, once the book is out, then the whole different scale of marketing and distributing. Now when you're talking about distributors, I remember why I selected Rupa. I decided to go to the booksellers, bookshops of the city. And I said, I checked out whoever were my publishers were, who had said yes. And it was actually the booksellers who helped me decide on Rupa, because they said Rupa has a very good distributorship. Now distributorship is very important, because your books has to percolate not only to the metros, it has to percolate to the smallest town of the country. That is very important, because the readers are there. So I think here, be very careful about, don't go only for the name, just check out the distributorship of that particular publication house. And I think that helps, because in the end, it's no use having just seeing your book in crosswords, Mumbai or Chennai or Delhi. It has to go to a Jamshedpur, it has to go to Ranchi, it has to go to the small places also. So and here I think the distributorship plays a very, very important role. So I won't even mind, like, the books have to be, as you actually, if they are they should be They are at the airport, they should be also available at the railway station. What I'm trying to say, it should go to each and every one. So because I think that is sort of the most untapped, um, sort of underrated viewership, readership which we see. We really don't see the small, the second ranked cities, second rate cities, or small towns, and even villages. I mean, the big villages, if you see, the books have to go there, and especially when these books are translated into the regional languages. I think it makes a huge difference, because that again is a massive chunk of readership. So if your books are going to be translated into any regional language, again you have to be very careful about who is going to do it, because many times the one who has originally done it, they might not handle the regional translation. There is another, that's another story. Regional translation is a different story altogether. But what I'm trying to say is that do not, we have a very urban outlook. We just see what is happening in Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, and we sort of on Bangalore. We don't really see what is happening, and I think most of the readers are not in the metros. They are there in different parts of the country. So eventually, I think what all I can say is that don't make the mistake which I did. Be a little more careful. Be definitely be more discerning. Okay, you don't have any choice, but and most importantly, don't stop writing. I think this whole thing about, if you have finished the book, is not getting, start another. Please do not stop. Don't stagnate with that one book and keep holding it. Start with another book, because sometime or the other it's going to happen. It is going to be published. That conviction has to be there, and it will happen. Why will it not happen? Your book is not that bad, please. And words come to us, you can sort of, it gives you, if it is not published even 5 years down, you see that book, and you might sort of hold it, remake it, and make out with a better, a more mature version of what you had originally written. So what I'm trying to say, don't give up anyway. And if you are there, if you are going to start another one, please start the second book, or second, second work of yours, because don't get disheartened by the first no, or the 10th no, or the 15th no, or the 50th no. I think what is most important here is that they should not kill your passion. I think that is very, very, no one should, whether it's criticism, whether it's the publishing scene, whether it's the marketing, nothing should really kill the writer's spirit. I think that is very important. That's all we can say. And yes, please do not repeat my mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very, very encouraging uh, talk. Like, it's really heartening to hear
It
a
wasn't
senior
really
writer
a
such
talk.
as you.
Actually, I was telling something which most of my readers always ask me, and I feel very sad to tell
Right.
them, okay, I cannot explain, because, and
Hmm.
then they tell me things which, things. Generally, I also realize things have changed, really, really changed for the worse, and I really can't help them out, and I do feel sad in the. Okay, fortunately there were some authors who helped me. There were some people who did help me, but I realize I cannot help them because I do not know myself. So I think what I'm trying to say is that it's a different world now. It's definitely a more global world, where online has become very definitely more powerful, as you say. So I think I have to make the most of it.
Yes, it was extremely encouraging and heartening to hear that, and how we should keep writing even if we face rejection. And I think one of the most insightful and interesting things that you said was how you went about reducing the size of your first novel. I think as writers, we are very attached to the
Yeah.
things we write, and how that entire process of revision might, I mean, it could be very painful, but in
Yeah,
your
could
case,
be.
it wasn't. And
I think could be
yeah.
the best part of my word. Might have I might have lost them, but then I said I didn't even see that, because I think that again, as I said, it happened because I was a journalist. I learned to you have to be a little
Mhm.
dispassionate about your writing, and it gave me that. I think yes, I think that really helped me, and then I realized that, that's what, even as a later author, later writer in my books, I decided how I have to sort of keep the importance of a word count,
Mhm.
because you do
Right.
get carried away. So I think all these are the technicalities of writing, not of publishing. So that I think that again these are different chapters of your life. So I think when we're talking about publishing, I think that's all I can say.
So now we'll go on with the Q&A. So we have a lot of questions coming in from the audience and everyone attending. So let's take this question first. So this is for the both of you actually. So you've both talked about the compatibility between your own manuscript and the publisher's vision. How do you highlight that compatibility before the publisher even reads your manuscript? So can you talk about how you wrote your query letters? How did you put forward your own profile and vision while reaching out to publishing houses? So Pranita, would you like to go first with that?
So I think the first thing that is very important is actually to read some of the books that they've already published, just to see whether. Also, for me, it was very important. I work. It was children's book, so the quality of the book, the paper, the design. I think for me, it was very important. The visual language of the book. So when I worked with them, I think I went through their books. So what have they published before? And this was important. And then I thought, okay, this could be the publishing house that will be able to put out my work out there, and that I will be happy. I just do not want it to be a very cheap paper books. Sometimes you find it out in the market. I think that would be terrible, because we have invested so much of time into that book. So this was for me very important when I selected, and also to see the content. Okay, like how like, are they experimenting with content? Is it the same stories that's coming up with the children's book, or are they doing something new? Are they also tackling social issues with children book? For me, this was also important, because my books have that social issues as a great theme in my children books. So this was also the other factor that I looked into. Were they doing that as well, or are they just publishing books for entertainment sector, or just to learn reading? I think DK does that a lot with their children books. So I think for me it was just the opposite. For me, it was like, okay, you spread the joy of reading through books, but it was also this this social consciousness that has to be embedded in that book, in that book. So these were some of the factors that I looked into when the selection process happened.
Kavita ma'am, what's your take on this?
Where once the man, as I said, once I gave the, I think the situation is very different. If you're talking about the first, I think I'll talk about the later this thing now. When I give, first and foremost, when you submit the manuscript, I think it should be properly edited. I think try to see to it that it's completely edited from your side, because it makes things a lot easier for the publishing houses. It is you're making things easier for them, but yes, it's in the end, it's your work. I think you don't want typos, and it's extremely irritating. So try to see that it is these are technical part, and see to it that is completely edited. When you're talking about the content actually, I think that again, as I think it again depends what relationship and how much you agree or disagree with your editor. It has to be uh, sometimes there are instances of arguments and all, I think I've heard, but fortunately I have had a very uh, it was a very calm, which is very important, a very calm relationship. And I was not averse. Actually, I'm not averse to changing and all. They didn't change much actually, but even if there is, because sometimes what happens when you do get carried away, when you're writing so much, it's like there's too much on your head. It happens that you do not realize, you tend to overlook certain factors, which I think the editor tells you, and I think it should be taken with. I think that's very important. So, and I think it helps. So it has to be a very conducive symbiotic process. And so when so eventually the work has to be good. The final result has to be good. You have to be satisfied with it, and you can go on. You can go on and on till you are happy with it. I think that's very important, because once it goes to print, then you cannot do anything about it. So the manuscript, till you have the draft, which you work on your draft, and once you give it to them, see to it it comes out the way you want it. That is very important, because that is the soul of what you have written. It cannot get corrupted, or it cannot get distorted. And I think that again, so you have to be happy. It's like when you're happy, it's the sense of fulfillment you get when you finish a book. It is also has to be that same sense of fulfillment and happiness has to be there when you read the hard copy of the book. When you see the book in your hand and say, okay, this is exactly how I imagined it to be.
It's lovely. So we have another question from the audience. So are authors required to approach literary agents if they want to get published by big houses? Also, what would be the average ratio of debut titles getting accepted by the big houses? So,
I think this is a question which I think the part B should be answered by the publishing house. I really would not know that. First part, I don't have an agent again. Really,
okay.
but yes, I've heard. I'm just telling you things which I just keep hearing. There are certain publishing houses you cannot even approach them without an agent. So I guess agents are very important now. So, and it is better because instead of being clueless and sort of floundering, it's better to yes give. But again, do your homework about the agent. That is again very
Mhm.
important. So I guess yes, I would recommend an agent, though I don't have one. But because I think many times these are all trial and error. I did mine with trial and error. It was there's no need to do. No need to go about it at all. Because you're wasting a lot of time. That's very
Mhm.
important. So I had all the time in the time in my world because I think I started very late. So I
Mhm.
guess seriously because I started late. It was a whole attitude which I had. I said, okay, I'm going to just write one book and sit back. So I think all this there's a certain I am a very lazy person also. So I think this all reflected in my the way I went about it. But I think for a for an intelligent writer, I think all this are part of writing a book, publishing, going to an agent. You have to know about it. So I think it's best to contact a good agent, and yes, he will do. The headaches will go. Yes, definitely they will.
Mhm. So Pranita, have you had any experience with literary agents, and what's your take on that?
No, not yet, I think. For me, it was we were targeting small publications, and I think the idea would definitely be, I think once you are at a level with your books that, okay, now maybe you find a big publishing house, then definitely. But I think at the moment, we are happy also with with the distribution of the smaller publishing house.
Mhm.
It is not reaching to smaller places, but I think we are able to reach our niche market, and this is definitely good. But maybe in few years down the line, we will look into I will look into the different bigger publishing scene out there. This is also
Mhm.
for me very insightful to hear from Kavita ma'am about going through an agent, and yes, I'm also looking
Yeah,
forward
so
to
that
look into that aspect as well.
yes, that is something that definitely first-time authors should keep in mind, that it might be something that we want to consider at a later point in our career. So one another question that we have is, do you try more to be original, or do you deliver what readers want? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So either one, please
Okay.
go.
No, definitely not. You have to be original because uh, because I don't know. At least I'm completely talking about my perspective. Yes, because if you are original, I think that's how you. That's why the lyric. It's sort of that's how it goes. I mean, if you are writing from the heart, it's your original. You are honest about your work. I think that's how the readers are going to like you. If you're going to do what the readers want, uh, you would see. It's like then you're doing everything. You are not deciding your story idea. I think that's very important, because you have to be, unless you are convinced about the story idea yourself, you are not going to sail through the 300 pages of the book. You won't be able to write it. You won't do full justice to it. So I think a personal conviction is extremely important. It's very crucial because uh, writing what the others want, uh, it doesn't work. At least I have not tried it. I wouldn't I don't know. I have not tried it ever. So let's say, no, forget writing for readers, for writing for a TV serial. There are so many. Now even the authors are sort of tempted with so many things. No, I write what I want to write, and if it becomes a TV serial, well and good. If the readers love it, love it. Because that is the most important thing. The readers are the most important part of of a book. Because you might write
Mhm.
a book. In the end, if the book is not read, what is? But that does not mean that you write what the readers want. I mean, it's, you have, the author has to have a certain. He has sort of, he has to separate this reality within himself. He has to be very honest with himself what he or she wants to write, and then he's supposed to sort of convince the readers, make the readers like what he has written. That's how the communication first comes from the author to the reader, and the reader, the feedback is then again. But I don't think I have. And I remember the success of Karna's wife. Many people told me, "Oh, why don't you write about Arjun's wife? Why don't you write about Bhim's wife? That is like a series." And no, I couldn't do that. It's like, it was. I think people would have loved it, but I really could not. It was, I wanted to write Karna's wife for a certain reason, and then I wrote Sita's sister. So I did not definitely start a series like of all. So I think, yes, I am not done it myself.
So, as a professional journalist, this must be very, very different from what you do, what you used to do as a journalist, and what you do now as a writer. So, how do you reconcile these two? So, I
Oh,
think, because I'm saying this because journalists are write more what is required rather than what they really feel passionate about.
that is
That's my
exactly the
understanding.
reason why I started writing a book. Because
Okay.
I wanted that
Yeah.
freedom. Honestly,
Hmm.
because I wanted that freedom. I wanted that. Uh, Let me do what I want. That entire feeling of it's not just creativeness. That entire feeling of freedom that you have written the book the way you wanted. I think so. I think that was one of the reasons why I started writing a book. I wrote a book was because technically, of course, you cannot compare journalistic writing with writing a book, even if it is non-fiction. I had chosen fiction, so which is complete. You can't compare the two. But yes, the freedom, the part was very important. Again, if,
Mhm.
that's what done it. Freedom again depends on you. What you want to. You don't want to be tied down by these sort of factors, by what the TV market wants, or what their publishers want, or what the readers want. No, you have to write it in such a way. You are telling a story. Tell the story well. I think that's what a writer is supposed to do. Write it well, tell a story well. If you are writing fiction, and do justice to that, I think the other things will just fall into place.
So, Pranita, what's your take on writing for a public, for the reader, as
I
opposed to
think
for yourself?
mhm. I think it's important to be honest to your craft. Um, you cannot produce another Chetan Bhagat. I think I would be tired if there will be like another Chetan Bhagat in the market, and there are plenty of such genres.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's for me it's tiring. I think it's important to create a work that it stays for a long time. It's not just you are creating your work out there for people to not just finish in a train ride or a flight ride. I think give something to the audience that they should think about, that it makes them think, and it makes them question, it makes them yeah, the core values of life. I think it is so important to have such work out there. I think it's important to be honest, to be skillful, and as well as to produce what you really care about. I think this is important, and it resonates with the audience if you do that. I think the other forms of art, the entertainment art, it's there, but yeah, you don't know what's happening. You read, and few days later you are like, wow, like, yeah, the reaction is, it's completely different than when you read like a good book, Arundhati Roy, or yeah, it's completely different genre, and you know, like, okay, the craft that it goes into, what went into writing of God of Small Things, or the Pursuit, the other book of Arundhati Roy, and you really know, like,
Ministry.
how, yes, the Ministry of Utmost Happiness, where like every sentence is so well constructed, and you read the first sentence of Chetan Bhagat, and you know where. So I think it's important to know that I cannot be Arundhati Roy, but but I think it's important for me to be honest and honest with the work that I do.
I think that's something very important that we should all remember as writers: honesty in our craft. So another question here. So it's easy to get published today, but it's proportionately harder to find readers. 90% of books published in India barely sell 2,000 copies a year. Would you say earning the loyalty of a tiny niche audience, as Pranita has talked about, is that preferable to writing a formula book that sells? So, Kavita ma'am, if you will go first?
No. I really didn't understand the question. Can you repeat it?
So is it better to earn the loyalty of a tiny audience, of a tiny niche audience, or is it preferable to write a formula book? So it's kind of related to our earlier question.
Okay. Formula books, of course. See, formula is always safe for everyone. It's safe for the author. It's safe for the publisher. It's even safe for the reader because, if an author decides to change the genre, you're not sure whether the readers will even accept it. I'm trying to see it in a completely, the reader's point of view as well as I'm trying to see it in that perspective. So I think once an author has created a certain niche, I think he tries to play this safe by sticking to that. I think there is it suits everyone. Of course, there are so here I think again it comes back to your first question. What the author wants to write. If he wants to he wants to follow the formula and continue with that. Like people do ask me that, why do you keep on writing on mythology? Why don't you want to change your genre? Personally, I would love to write a thriller because I love reading thrillers. But I don't think I'm still up to it because I don't know. I'm really really happy with mythology because the way I see mythology, I think it gives me it can really give me a complete freedom to sort of use those old stories with a certain contemporary sensibility. So it's the perfect canvas for me. So right now I'm very happy. Can't say, I will never say never. I can't say I might write a thriller. Let's see. I might. That's why it depends a lot on what the author wants to write. I think that's the mood. I mean, what eventually the author sits and because I think ideating is the most difficult part about writing a book. What you're going to write on. It, it's not only supposed to keep you, the readers, if it comes out, it's not only going to keep the readers mesmerized, it has to mesmerize the writer himself. As I said, he has to write those 300 pages. So it's completely what the reader, author thinks is right for him. But then if you say formulaic, right, I really don't know because you can say I have got into this thing of formula writing. I'm writing about marginalized women. All my 6 books are about marginalized women. So yes, I have also it has become a formula now. So I am still continuing with it. So I don't know when I will break it. When I decide to, let's say, even take up a historical fiction, because I still believe mythology gives me more freedom than historical fiction. So I think again, it depends completely on the mood and mind of the author.
I think we'll all look forward to your thriller when you do decide to write it. So that will be something to look
God,
forward to.
No, I tell you why I really don't want to write a thriller, because I remember when we used to in school when I used to read Agatha Christie, and my only I think my only aim was to take out the flaws in the book, to take out the loopholes, which is where has she slipped, if imagine if I have such a reader, that's oh my God, he's finding so many mistakes in the book. No, I'm petrified of such a reader. So I wish to actually me and my friend wish to actually write to the publisher, I think this was there, and then they used to say, okay, it's gone, a flaw in the plot. So, and especially in thriller and all, or a whodunit, it's extremely difficult. I mean, the smallest detail is so important, which can be, I think it's one of the most demanding of all the genres. If you see thriller, we think it is light reading, but it's very difficult writing, I guess. So
Mhm.
let's hope one day I do right.
Yeah.
I think,
I don't think you'll face any danger from me. I never spotted anything that went wrong with Agatha Christie. I just
oh
love them
no,
all. So,
no, we love them, but she could
yeah.
have done this because that was typical of
Mhm.
any. It happens with any
Yeah.
hood, especially with whodunit. It happens with, oh, well, they could have
Mhm.
written it, that sort of. Uh, so I think the only book which I could not find guess the murderer was Murder of Roger Ackroyd, because I think the whole narrative was the whole point of view was through
Mhm.
Shepard. So I think that's the reason why we got totally foxed. But yes, I mean, if you have such devilish readers, then I think I don't want. It's very scary.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have more time for just one last question. So just a minute. So do authors no, sorry, just a second. I lost the question that I had marked out. Okay. So in the context of traditional publishing, can one be published without money or credentials? I mean, can a college student get published only on the basis of their book? So, Pranita, what's your take on this
Um,
first? Will-
I think it depends upon your book, and I'm sure it's not a publishing house will never say that if you are a student you will not be
Yes.
published. I think it's very clear. Depends upon your work, and if you have like a very good concept note proposal, or if you already have a draft, I think you should go ahead and submit it. There's absolutely you should not worry about money here. I think you should just go out and try, and repeating, I think just what I said before, just look out for a publication and see the objectives. I think this is very important to know that, okay, this is a publication that I want to go ahead with. I think so. This is important, but yeah, just go and submit. But important
Mhm.
that you should be comfortable with the work that you are submitting. Be prepared with your script. I mean, it's important at least a first draft or few chapters or a concept note. I think this has to be like, maybe find someone, your friend who's good at editing, get like at least make sure that you don't have any mistakes when you are submitting even a concept note or a proposal, that it should have a certain sense of professionalism in that writing. So I think make sure that you do that, but there's nothing to stop you, and go ahead and try your luck out there.
That's lovely to hear.
Yeah.
Kavita ma'am?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Pranita. It's totally true. I think age and experience really doesn't matter. It's the content which matters, and as long as you do it with complete professionalism and it's honest. And I think, of course, in a college student, of course, he will become an author. Why would he not become a
Hmm.
published, well acclaimed paper? I think the publishers like the book, they'll pick it up because that's what they want. They want variety. See, if actually a publisher would say it in a better way, they want variety. They also do not, after a point, how often can you go formulaic? It's like, as I said
Mhm.
earlier, when I went to a publisher, my mythology was not a very popular genre. It had become 5 years down. It did become a popular genre. So you don't know how things change. If they like the book, they will pick it up. So I think that's not. And if it's an excellent piece of work, why will not? Nothing. So you can't beat you can't underrate quality. I mean, if it's quality there, definitely. It will be.
So, yeah. So that was absolutely a lovely and very insightful session on publishing and the very different experience you both have had with publishing and independent publishers versus more major publishing houses. So I think with that we can take away quite a few uh, points for our audience. So some of the audience are asking what. So then the final questions: what are publishers looking for? So I think what we can draw from what both the speakers have told us is that first, quality is always important. That you should focus on quality and deliver the best work possible. And publishers also look for variety and originality. So try to aim for that. And conviction is very important in this. And you should really believe in the work that you're submitting to a publishing house. And other than that, I think we also have quite a few tips in how to go about the actual publication process. So I think what both our speakers have emphasized is that we should really focus on finding out about the publishing house. That we should learn up what they publish, how our writing really corresponds with their list, and how we can really use what they have already published as a background to showcase our own work. And for this, we would have to study the publisher profile. And here, I think one of the most important things for us, for all writers to remember, is to not take any rejection to heart, to keep writing, because that is the basis for writing a book, that you write because you want that book to be exist. So to keep writing, to take any rejection to heart, and just really go for it. I think that's a very encouraging and very heartening message that comes from the entire discussion that we have had. So now I'd like both our speakers to make their concluding remarks. Anything that you'd like to add and conclude with. So would Pranita, would you like to go first?
I think thank you to Paper Truth team for this invitation. I think I had a wonderful time sharing about my experience, and also meeting Kavita ma'am. I think it was really, really great to listen to her, and I had a great time. So I hope the listeners will the listeners will be able to take few learning from me, and yes, I had a really great time. So thank you for joining us today, and yes, so thank you.
Kavita
Thank you,
ma'am?
Pranita. I think it was really a lovely meeting all of you, and the whole. I think the most important part was that this gave me a platform to actually talk about what I really wanted to talk about for a very long time. I was wondering, in fact, initially when when Sandy approached me, I was very skeptical because I was not sure what I would be able to say, and then I realized, yes, this is the most common question asked by most readers who are aspiring writers, and this whole sense of dread, this anxiety which they face, I think, which is so sort of blown up because I think all they need is a certain assurance, a certain reassurance, which I hope I've been able to help them. And thank you again, all of you. And it was definitely, certainly a lovely evening. And yes, happy reading, happy writing. And yes, never give up, never say never, never say never.
Thank you so much for that. So I think both the speakers have emphasized the need for editing and for really making sure that the work is at the top-notch level. So this resonates with me very much actually, because at Paper2 that is what we offer. So we offer an entire suite of pre-publishing services. So we can help you create the most perfect book possible with editing and proofreading. We design a cover for you, we can typeset your book for you, and even get an ISBN and book reviews and all the material that you would require. So basically, we can help you bring your book into the world. So for this, you can please check us out on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and also on LinkedIn. And we also have a resource center for all writers. So we talk about the writing process and the publishing process and everything that goes into that. So you might find some valuable content there.
So now I know
So thank.
so I know whom to direct, where and whom to direct all the questions to now.
Yes, of course. Thank you so. Thank you. And yes, so I'd also like to thank Chetna, who's controlling all of this in the background, and the entire Paper2 team who has come up with this entire session and the entire webinar. So thanks a lot for that. And of course, our lovely audience who has attended and asked such insightful and interesting questions. And of course, our panelists. So thanks a lot for being here with us and sharing your insights and ideas. It was really lovely to host you. Thank you.
Thank you.